Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to breakfast in the class. Mu'adim l'simcha, hagim uzmanim l'sason. Please only answer amen if you're listening to this live. I don't know who gave me which one. I'll put one in each. That way you both got the mitzvah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה baro. Amen. Okay. Today's breakfast in the class is sponsored and dedicated by the Daniel S. Loeb Torah Center founders, Soli and Pauline Asa, in loving memory, Lunishmat Soli's father for Shiloshim, Ham Yosef ben Chamishak, Zaki ben Najla, and as well for the Refuah Shlema of the Rabbi Shlomo Farhi Toneh, Hayim Fel Befrida, and for continued health of Chana Bat Simafega. My friends also dedicated for a successful surgery and a speedy and complete recovery for Ben Sion Daniel Ben Mordechai, for a wonderful man that I met in the hospital, Asher Ben Shendel Mindel, and as well, Li'ilui Nishmat Hava Rachel Bat Hava Tenishmatat Surah B'Tzura Hayim. Okay, let's begin. So we have a beautiful pasuk. And the pasuk tells us as follows. 7 days, says the pasuk, I want you to sit in the sukkah. The Gemara in Masechet Sukkot, I guess if you have multiple copies, it's Masechet Sukkot. But the Gemara in Masechet Sukkah says as follows. All 7 days, Kol Shivat Hayamim, Tzeh medirat keva, leave your permanent dwelling, v'shev b'dirat arai, and dwell and live in a temporary dwelling. Now, just to be clear, look at these walls around us. Do these walls, do they seem to be temporary? No. You could have brick walls of a sukkah that's still a temporary dwelling. How? Because the schach is the temporary part. The part that's covering you on top. All right? So, this concept, leaving a permanent home and going into a temporary abode or dwelling, is how the Gemara describes the mitzvah of Basukot Teshebu Shivat Yamim. Sit for 7 days in a sukkah. And I saw put across beautifully by the Sefer Me'afar Kumi. Communicates the idea magnificent. He says, really, the message of the sukkah and the lesson of the sukkah is not only about the home that you live in, but rather it's a message and an idea which is meant to encapsulate and encompass the very essence of the way a person sees their own life. Now we know, as an example, that a Jewish person is taught from the time they're very young that there are two components to a person. One of them is the guf, the body, and one of them is neshama. Now, the rabbi, he points out, and he expresses that it's really spoken mostly about in a Sefer Da'at Atzmecha, that the biggest mistake that people make is they confuse how they look at their guf neshama conundrum. So I'm made up of these two things, body and soul. But, am I a body? Am I a human being having a spiritual experience? Or am I a spiritual being having a physical experience? How do you see yourself? Are you a soul that's in this weird place called the world? In it, you eat and you sleep, and you go to a Yankee game and they lose, right? Are you a neshama having physical experiences? Or are you a body that every once in a while, wow, I went this place, it was so spiritual. That's the out of character, which is in line, which is in character, and which is out of character, which is out of line. Says the Torah, Basukot Teshebu Shivat Yamim. I want you to dwell in a sukkah for 7 days. What is a sukkah? A sukkah is dirat arai, a temporary dwelling. When you think of this world, how do you think of it? Do you think of it with permanence? Like it's going to last forever? Do you think of the things of this world as being permanent and real? Or do you think of them as being temporary? In fact, the irony is, when you leave your home, you're really leaving your temporary home. And where are you going into? A permanent dwelling. The Sukkah, which is a spiritual domain, is a permanent place. It's a place of mitzvot. It's a place of the soul. The house, what is it? The house is a temporary place. So what do we do? What does the Pasuk tell you? Shivat Yamim, 7 days. It's important to understand, whenever we use the number 7 in the Torah, what are we referring to? What does 7 represent in the Torah? 7 represents the natural cycle. 7 days a week. 7 years, Shemitah. 7 Shemitahs, Yovel. In fact, the Midrash tells us that on a certain level, a person's life is divided. Very interesting Midrash, we don't have time to go into it. But how a person's life is divided into 7 equal parts. The first part, when he's born, the Midrash gives examples of each 7th of the person's lifetime. So when we see this idea, Basukot Shevu Shivat Yamim, we're really being encouraged not to sit in a sukkah, but to change our whole life view. Fascinating. Let me take this really one step further when we think about this idea of being a soul that's having physical experiences, that's having a marriage, that's having children, that's going to work, that's eating food. I'm a neshama. I was here before, I'm going to be here after I die. Versus being a body that has some spiritual experiences. Let's dig into that together for 1 minute. I want to share an example of this concept. There was a famous, the Chafetz Chaim was a person who really thought out of the box. And his book Chafetz Chaim popularized and drew awareness to the mitzvah of protecting a person's mouth from speaking Lashon Hara. So people like to think sometimes the Chafetz Chaim is the one that told us that Lashon Hara is Asur. Lashon Hara is Asur from the Torah. But people were being negligent. So what did he do? He saw that people weren't paying attention. So he took the time to write a book that would draw attention to not speaking Lashon Hara. And he created a revolution against Lashon Hara. But that was not the only thing the Chafetz Chaim did, by the way. You know what else he did? He wrote the Mishnah Berurah. But that maybe was a very complete work with regards to the halacha of the Shulchan Aruch writing the contemporary Piskei Halacha of how we would hold today, at least if you're Ashkenaz. My friends, the Chafetz Chaim realized that Mashiach is right around the corner. Chafetz Chaim himself was a Kohen. He said, Mashiach's going to come. They're going to build the Beit HaMikdash. Who's going to know how to bring the Korbanot? Nobody. So he opened up a yeshiva, and in his yeshiva they learned all the halachot of Korbanot. They learned the Gemarot that no one learns. Masechet Kodashim, all those Kodashim, Masechtot. Now you have brisk as a very popular phenomenon to study it. But back then, it was a mi'ut. There was very few people who knew the halachot of how to serve in the temple, how to bring a korban, how to do a mincha, what the laws of purity were, because it wasn't relevant, so they didn't learn it. So the Chafetz Chaim was a tremendous visionary. He didn't only think of, let's learn Torah. He thought, what Torah is at risk of being forgotten? So he started this yeshiva, but he has something else which is not as well known. He wrote a book called the Sefer HaMitzvot Katan. The small Sefer HaMitzvot. Now why is it called small Sefer HaMitzvot? Because the Chafetz Chaim correctly identified the fact that if you open up Harambam, Sefer HaMitzvot, you open up Sefer HaChinuch, you find 613 mitzvot, correct? How many of those mitzvot are relevant today? Right? All the laws of the temple, not relevant. We're not doing them. All the laws tied to Eretz Yisrael, Aliyah Rega, not relevant. All the laws Para Aduma, not relevant. So you have so many mitzvot that are not relevant today in our day. And therefore a person might look at all the mitzvot and get overwhelmed. So he wrote a book of mitzvot that's relevant only for today. Sefer Mitzvot HaKatan. Now, how many mitzvot are there? Mitzvot, positive commandments, do we have in the Torah? Anyone know? No, that's negative. 248. Excellent. 248 mitzvot, I say positive commandments. You know how many mitzvot are relevant today? You can fulfill today in today's day and age? 77. Manageable, right? Cuts down, the Lota says also, significantly. So you go through this book, and you think to yourself, wow, I could be an expert in mitzvot. This is a book that he wrote. Anyway, one day, he calls in his assistant over there, and he says, listen, I just finished the book. I need to find someone. It's going to cost 1,000 ruble to be able to print the Sefer. I need to find someone, a wealthy Jew, maybe from America, that's going to be able to pay for it, or from some distant land. The guy says, okay, you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to find the guy for you. Chafetz Chaim says, I have two conditions. The person who is going to take the sponsorship of my Sefer, he says, condition number one, the guy can't ask to have his name in the book. Number one. Number two, I'm not having every mitzvah has a different sponsorship. One guy for the whole book. Two conditions. So one guy had to give the whole 1,000 ruble. And the second thing was that the guy, no name in the book. Has to be l'shem shamayim. If I'm going to partner with somebody, I don't want the guy to be doing it for fame and fortune and kavod. I want the guy's intentions to be pure. And then he tells the guy, and I don't want that the guy should say, okay, if you put my name on the cover, my mother, my grandmother, I don't want him to say that. And then you tell him, the Chafetz Chaim said no. I want the guy to think of that himself. If not, he's not my guy. Guy's thinking to himself, where's he going to find someone like this? Well, he travels to America. He gets off the boat in America. And the journey was, at that time, very difficult. And he'd fallen sick on this journey. And he had terrible cold, maybe pneumonia, whatever it was. The doctors told him, listen, your situation is very precarious. You can't be wandering around here in the cold. You need to go to this warm place to go to Florida. The guy says, okay, how do I get to Florida? They say, you take this bus or this train, and you'll get you to Florida. Okay, the guy's not well. What's he going to do? He gets in his transportation, and he arrives in the station in Florida. As he gets off of the bus, he sees standing on the bus platform is a religious-looking guy, Jewish guy. So the guy comes running over to him. He says, Reb Yid. He says, yes. He says, welcome to Florida. He says, I'm here, just to greet you, to tell you, don't go to the kosher restaurant. He says, where should I go if I shouldn't go to the kosher restaurant? I go to Taref restaurant? He said, no. This place, it pretends it's kosher. The place is Taref, so I feel a responsibility to let people know that look like they're religious, that they're not allowed to eat there. He says, okay, so where should I eat? He says, you eat by me. Okay, Hazid, he's sick, comes to the guy's house, this fellow, and he eats. His wife makes him a delicious meal. He's not feeling well. He sleeps for a few hours. Slowly he feels he's getting better, a day or two. After 2-3 days, the guy, Baruch Hashem, is now feeling like himself. The guy says to him, what brings you to Florida? He says, I'll tell you the truth. He says, I was with the Chafetz Chaim, and the Chafetz Chaim finished his book. But because he was so sick and he traveled, he forgot to tell the guy the conditions. He says, and he's looking for someone to sponsor his book of mitzvot, Sefer Mitzvot Hekatan. The guy, the man from the platform, says to him, listen, I'll do it. But I have 3 conditions. Condition number 1, nobody else gets to be part of this. It's only my mitzvah. Condition number 2, he says, no name, my name does not go in the book. And condition number 3, he says, you don't breathe a word about this to anybody. The guy can't believe that exactly what the holy Chafetz Chaim sent him to do is now here. Now, what's crazy is the guy travels from Europe. He's sick, so he can't be in the city. They send him to where? Miami. Where does as soon as he gets the first guy he meets? You're thinking to yourself, like I'm thinking, who's the Chafetz Chaim going to find to fulfill these conditions? The first guy he meets on the train platform. Anyway, okay. Years and years and years pass by. And this shaliach, this emissary of the Chafetz Chaim, is now living back in Eretz Israel. And he sees a great rabbi of his town, Rav Zolti, is passing by. So he calls him over, he says, Rav Zolti, come here. I have to tell you something. Guy comes over. He says, do you know the story of the Sefer Mitzvot Hekatan? Rabbi says, no, what are you talking about? He says, you don't know the story with your father-in-law? He says, no, what are you talking about? He says, well, when I came, the Chafetz Chaim, there's conditions, nobody knows, but the book is not in it. Your father-in-law was the one who sponsored the book. Nobody ever knew. His name is not in the book. And I'm getting older, I feel like you should know. Guy says, I can't believe my father-in-law never said one word even to the family. Rav Zolti goes back to his father-in-law. Now, in the book where I read it, it says the father-in-law's name. But I can't bring myself to share with you his name. He goes to his father, he says, father-in-law, I can't believe you had a partnership with the Chafetz Chaim. So what are you talking about? He says, the Sefer Mitzvot Katan. He's like, what are you talking about? He says, the guy told me that you sponsored it. He starts crying uncontrollably. He says, what's the matter? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. What's the problem? He says, you know, in my life I've given a lot of tzedakah. But I have a name in the world as being a person who gives a lot of tzedakah. I got a lot of kavod for all the tzedakah that I gave. I had one mitzvah that I never breathed one word of to a soul on earth. And it was a partnership with none other than the Chafetz Chaim. And the book was a book of the utmost importance. And I thought that I'd be able to get to Shamayim with one mitzvah l'shem Shamayim. I don't forgive the shaliach of the Chafetz Chaim. I don't forgive him in this world, and I don't forgive him in the next world. Now you understand why I didn't tell you his name. Anyway, eventually, they calm him down. He asks mechila, he's mochel, the person in the end. My friends, I just want to draw your attention to one point. Now that we know, is his mitzvah ruined? I mean, you don't know his name, but I do. He's crying his eyes. Is his mitzvah ruined? The Shem Shamayim. Nobody should know. Only kavod. My friends, I want to share that the crying that this man exhibited when he was found out, when he was outed for his tzedakah, tells you that even if the whole world finds out, his intention was not for any kavod. Is the problem that we look at Moshe Rabbeinu and say, wow, Moshe Rabbeinu is amazing? No. The problem is if Moshe Rabbeinu does what he does, in order that we should say, wow, Moshe Rabbeinu is amazing. But if Moshe Rabbeinu was to cry and feel like I could never forgive the guy that told anyone about what I did, he doesn't lose from the sachar, from the genuine, from the authenticity of his mitzvah. My friends, a long time ago, when I was a young warthog, I used to collect baseball cards. And I have quite the collection. Unfortunately, for all of us who collected baseball cards that are my age, we were basically wasting our time. Why? I don't know if anybody knows this. This was explained to me. Cards were valuable because they were rare. Once people started realizing that cards were rare and they were expensive, companies like Topps and Upper Deck started making cards in mass. So even if you have a series of every baseball player in whatever given year, it's not worth much because there's thousands of them. The only cards that were valuable were the cards that there wasn't a lot of. So the minute collecting cards became popular, there aren't cards that are collectibles. The only ones that are is if they made a printing mistake on the rookie card, and there's 4 of them, that's the one. But you have to get lucky to have that. I found out that my collection is not as worth as much as I thought. But I have some nice cards, some good cards. I remember when I got Roger Clemens' rookie card. And one of the boys from my grade stole it from me. And he never admitted to it. But I was mochel him a very long time ago. And it was made much easier by finding out that it wasn't all that expensive. My friends, but when you collected cards, if you had some really good cards, you know where you put them? Anyone here a card collector? In the plastic vinyl, right? Yeah. So there's the thin ones, squishy. Then there's the thick ones, like a little hard. Then there's ones with plastic screws, like thick, magnetic they have. Why? Because when they look at your card and they're deciding how much it's worth, they're looking at what's called triple mint. That there's not one bend in the corner. That the card is not in any way, like, perfect condition. Anyone here collect comic books? You know the value, how much it goes down the minute you opened up the plastic? They sell these ridiculous dolls and figures in the box. Huge difference in value. My friends, mitzvot are the same way. A person could do 1,000 mitzvot that are half done. Dog ear corners. You spilled soup on it. And then there's the mitzvot that you do that are pristine, that are perfect kavanah, only l'shem shamayim. Our pasuk is encouraging us to do something very simple. It's encouraging us to change the way we think about our possessions. So back then in the day, I didn't have, because the cases were expensive, the good cases. So I had tens of thousands of cards. So now you got a big fancy case. You got to think to yourself, out of the 10,000 cards, which card is going into the case, right? My friends, which of your mitzvot is going into the case? The pasuk says, Yaakov Avinu, he built himself a house, v'lemikneu, and to his animals, what did he build? Sukkot. He built Sukkot. Commentators ask, what, you got to tell me which shed he got from Home Depot? You know, who cares? He built a house, okay. Now listen, he got from IKEA, he got the Fluben Schlaben model for his sheep. We need to know what he housed his sheep in. You know what the answer is? The answer is that some people realize that you build a house for your family and you build a shed, a shack for your stuff. And some people, they don't realize it, but they put their stuff in a house, in a case. And they put their family in the shack. They have a piece of artwork. It's in the most carefully controlled environment. Exactly the right temperature. There's checking for moisture. Which light bulbs are being used. The care and concern that they have for this piece of artwork is more than they ever had for any of their babies. Says the pasuk, Yaakov Avinu builds a house for his family. Ulemikneu, and for what he bought. Asa Sukkot. He made a shack. Whatever it is. The time that you spend at home versus the time you spend in the office. And I have to say this. It's not only about quantity. How much time you spend at home. How do you spend the time that you spend at home? How much do your kids feel that you care about them, about their stuff, about their needs? I'm not saying a person needs to get taken up and completely consumed by all the silliness that's going on with his kids. Whatever fad or trend they're up to. I think you need to TikTok dance. You know, I don't think that's but for the things that are important for your children, for them to know that you're there for that, and that you're present, and that it matters to you. Understand, my friends, there are certain things in this life that are temporary, and there are certain things in this life that are forever. What is forever? What will never be buried? Your mitzvot. Your family will never be buried. What do I mean by that? Not the members themselves. 120 you'll go. 120 they'll go. But by then, Be'ezrat Hashem, they'll have children. The legacy and the family and the mindset of the family that you built, that's forever. Imagine putting your stuff in the house and having a sukkah for forever. Says the Torah, Basukot teshivu shivat yamim. Remember to put the temporary things in a temporary dwelling. And remember that there's a part of you that's going to live forever, and invest enough in that thing. Here's a man who gave all the money in the world for him, but 3 conditions. No one's allowed to know who gives money like that. No hakdasha, nothing. Also, I don't want to share this with anybody else. Sometimes the guy will tell you, Rabbi, it's expensive. Go to 5 more guys. Guy said, don't go to any more guys. I want this mitzvah. I want it for me. He saw the Chafetz Chaim was writing something that was important for the Jews of his day. You know, sometimes I think to myself, in our Bet Knesset, we're exploding. We need to buy a building next door. We need to expand. This way, that way. I think to myself, what are people here crazy? You have a lot of people, they put their name on a building in Israel. You go to the building in Israel, there's nobody there. I'm not joking. I wish I was joking. You know, they built this huge building. Who's it? Nobody. You want to put your name on something that's going to matter, right? So you have someone, you know, they build a building, put a name on it. Who? Nothing. Here you know, you have a Beit Knesset that's busting at the seams. Hundreds of people every day. You're investing in a winner. If someone said to you, I want to sell you a piece of the last place team in the Major League Baseball, you don't want to buy. Someone tells you, listen, here, I have opportunity. You could buy into the Dodgers. They just won the World Series. They look like they're going to win the World Series for the next 50 years, these guys. Okay? Do you want to buy a piece? Someone offers you an opportunity to buy a piece of the Chiefs. They won the Super Bowl already, God knows how many times. You want to buy that? Sometimes I think to myself, it should be a no-brainer that someone should say, I want to invest in a winner because this is going to change the world. Look for things that are really bringing change in the world around you and jump at the opportunity to be able to help it. Maybe helping it is not only financially. Maybe helping it is putting together the deal to buy a building. What we're doing with Chazak, I know, around the world in the Torah Center, is a game changer. We should not be asking people to help. People should be knocking down the door to help, and many people are. But my friends, I'm not talking really about this or here. I'm talking about forever. You are investing in forever. You know, some people, they sell, their work is in futures. So you can invest in gold. Gold is at all-time high. But some people, you can invest in what's going to be in the future. Sukkot Teshvu Shivat Yamim says, don't spend all your money on something that in a few minutes is not going to matter. And you know what? Vacations, gorgeous. Nice cars, amazing. Suit, beautiful. Clothing, awesome. Nice restaurants, brilliant. Everything has its place. Enjoy it. Enjoy it, make the beracha, appreciate what Hashem gave to you. But there's got to be some boundaries. There's got to be some, balance between the two. Imagine coming to someone and saying, look, this is my portfolio. I invested in this charity. I set it up. Not because you're bragging to them. This tzedakah, you know what it's doing? It's bringing peace between couples that are fighting, saving marriages. Look at this one that I've got for orphans and widows. Look at this I've got over here for Torah, teaching Torah. The whole world is learning from this Torah organization. This is in my balanced portfolio. That's the concept of Basukot Teshvu Shivat Yamim. Leave your house, live in something temporary, so that you remember the difference between temporary and permanent. And you know what matters in this world. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen. Rabbi Chananya ben Akasha.